Albert Barnes said the Pharisees were the most numerous and wealthy sect of the Jews. They derived their name from the Hebrew word farosh, which signifies to set apart or to separate, because they separated themselves from the rest of their countrymen, and professedly devoted themselves to special strictness in religion. Their leading tenets were the following. This is what the Pharisees believed: that the world was governed by fate or by a fixed decree of God, that the souls of men were immortal and were either eternally happy or miserable beyond the grave. They believed in an afterlife. That the dead would be raised, that there were angels, good and bad, that God was under obligation to bestow special favor on the Jews, and that they were justified by their own conformity to the law. They believe in works salvation. That's how you get there. Paul the Apostle was one of these Pharisees before he converted. They were proud, haughty, self-righteous, and held the common people in great disrespect. They sought the offices of the state and affected great dignity. They were ostentatious in their religious worship, praying in the corners of the streets and seeking publicity and the bestowment of alms. They maintained some of the laws of Moses very strictly. In addition to the written laws, they held a multitude which they maintained had come down from Moses by tradition. These they felt themselves as much bound to observe as the written law. Through these traditions, these oral traditions that came by, the Jews observe the Talmud, these other traditions that have risen up that they follow, which is where you get the bar mitzvah and all of this. Under the influence of these laws, they washed themselves before meals with great scrupulousness. They fasted twice a week, on Thursday when they supposed that Moses ascended Mount Sinai, and on Monday when he descended. They wore broad phylacteries and enlarged the fringe or borders of their garments to appear more broad and upright. They loved the chief rooms at feast and the chief seats in the synagogues. In general, they were a corrupt, hypocritical, office-seeking, haughty class of men. There are, however, some honorable exceptions recorded, and down here you can go to any of these. Acts 5:34 speaks of Gamaliel and all of these. Who were the Sadducees? The Sadducees are supposed to have taken their name from Zadok, who flourished about 260 years before the Christian era. He was a pupil of Antigonus Sochaeus, president of the Sanhedrin, or Great Council of the nation. He had taught the duty of serving God disinterestedly, without the hope of reward or the fear of punishment. No afterlife. These don't believe in afterlife, Sadducees. That's why they're sad, you see. I've heard that joke so many times. Zadok, not properly understanding the doctrine of his master, drew the inference that there was no future state of rewards or punishments, and on this belief he founded the sect of Sadducees. The other notions which they held, all to be traced to this leading doctrine, were that there is no resurrection, neither angel nor spirit. No resurrection, no angels, no spirits in man, nothing lives on, and that the soul of man perishes with the body. They rejected the doctrine of fate or decrees. No fate, no predestination. Number 3, they rejected all traditions and professed to receive only the books of the Old Testament. They were far less numerous than the Pharisees, but their want of numbers was compensated in some degree by their wealth and standing in society. Though they did not generally seek office, yet several of them were advanced to the high priesthood. Now for this third and the smallest sect of them, but worthy of note, is the Essenes. A third sect of the Jews are not mentioned in the New Testament. They differed from both the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They were Jewish monks or hermits, passing their time little in society, but mostly in places of obscurity and retirement. It is not probable, therefore, that our Savior often, if ever, encountered them, and this, it is supposed, is the reason why they are not mentioned in the New Testament. They were a contemplative sect, having little to do with the common business of life. The property which they possessed they held in common. They also believed that the Dead Sea Scrolls were written by Essenes. They denied themselves in a great measure the usual comforts of life, and were exceedingly strict in the observance of the duties of religion. They were generally more pure than the rest of the Jews, and appear to have been an unambitious, a modest, and retiring sort of people. The two sexes, male and females, were not in company except on the Sabbath when they partook of their course fare, only bread and salt together. They practiced dancing in their worship. Few of them were married. They were opposed to oaths, and they asserted that slavery was repugnant to nature. In regard to doctrine, they did not differ materially from the Pharisees. They did believe in an afterlife, except that they objected to the sacrifices of slain animals, and of course did not visit the temple, and were not therefore likely to come into public contact with the Savior. They perpetuated their sect by proselytes, the preachers of them, and by taking orphan children to train up. Now, the Pharisees and Sadducees, they disputed over so many small matters, even though there were huge differences between the two. Just worthy of note, many Pharisee-Sadducee disputes revolved around issues of Tumah and Tahara, or ritual purity. One example was that according to the Pharisees, spilt water became impure through its pouring. When you started to pour water, the Pharisees thought that it was impure after that because it was being poured. They would even not pluck the gray hairs off of their beard during Sabbath because that was a work. Sadducees denied that this is sufficient grounds for impurity.